Thank you for tuning in again.
This week we got it going and we're excited about the topic
Yes.
because we're talking marinated marketing, which
Yeah.
sounds a little odd when you consider that our mixer this week is marinated olives, which I understand, Juliet, you may have made.
Oh my God. I love anything olives, and it was yummy. We do this thing. I only cook on the weekends usually. So by the time we get to the show, it's done. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, both of us. We just don't have time.
I know. But I made the caramelized bacon last week too. That was so good.
Was it?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I just loved it. But caramelized bacon, but I was out of town, so I wasn't in my own kitchen.
So you couldn't really make it.
So I couldn't really make it. Yeah. But the marinated olives, I didn't make them yet, but that's because no one else will eat them but my son-in-law, Jonathan. So I'm going to make them for him when we get to our skiing later.
Oh, nice. Oh, you're going skiing this year? You're actually going to ski?
No. I'm not skiing.
Okay.
I'm going to the place where everybody else is skiing.
Okay.
I'm just staying there and cooking.
I feel kind of hurt that you didn't visit me like you did last year.
I know, like last year. I know. Somebody said that to me. It's a like all driving trip this time. So me not being in the car with the girls would be bad.
So. Okay. You're driving to Colorado.
Yes, we are driving to Colorado.
Why? Are you going through Utah?
I guess technically, yes.
Technically, yes. You have to get to the 70 somehow.
You have to go through there. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, well, we're gonna, so I will give an update into the post, into the website, into the Facebook page rather, to let everybody know how my marinated olives turned out. But how did yours turn out?
Mine turned out really well. And I actually warmed them up a little bit because I love warm olives. I don't know why. I've had them at a couple restaurants and they're just better warm. So I'm really excited.
That's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. I have to mention too, I ordered some of the rubs from Amazon, Marie's rubs. And if you guys go over to M Chef, and I tried one of them this week and it was very good. I tried the San Antonio.
Ooh, I've tried a couple of them. The Mediterranean one's really good. The Provence one's really good. So like there's a few of them that are just amazingly delicious. And the other ones are the sort of sugars and spices for making the drinks. Cause hey, holiday cocktails, why not? So anyway, well, let's talk about marketing being marinated.
Well,
what does that have to do with anything? Like, do we really marinate our marketing?
We do.
Should we?
Yeah. Heck
yeah. Absolutely. We should be marinating it. Well, but what does that mean?
Oh, you're not going to tell them?
Well, I was hoping you were.
Well, marinating. So when you meet someone, you need to marinate them in that goodness. They don't automatically know you, like you, and trust you. Chances are, if you've met at an event, you've just pitch slapped them. So they probably don't want to be marinated. But
I love that.
So marinating, go for it.
Yeah. This is a thing that I think that is so important that we forget about, that we don't want to just go for how do I put it? We just think this is the way things should be. We're like, it's a hard and fast recipe, right? But things don't always taste really good. They don't always feel right the first time. Sometimes they need to settle in and we need to absorb them. Like we need time to get back to that. So that's where I always like to think is like when we build a website or we build copy, we do anything like title something, we want to do it and then we want to sit on it. We want to get some feedback on it. We want to, see how it feels a couple of days from now, see how it tastes a couple of days from now, right? Because it may not have been right. Like we just throw something out there. So, a good friend of ours, Juliet, and a co-client of ours, Meryl Chandler, who's got a new book coming out, right?
Actually, it's out.
It's out. That's right. It is out. And so, here he is, he puts out a book and then realizes that maybe that wasn't the best title for it. Oh. Like as they're going to print, right? Because people see, the more people he's commenting about, the more that they thought it meant something different.
Right.
And so that's really the kind of case where you get into something and you think it's perfect. You think you've got it all, but you've been in your own internal bubble for a while. And that's where when we put it out there, and we let it sit and marinate in the community we want to have input into it, we start to hear things back of, oh, wow, that just didn't feel like what I thought it was going to feel like. That didn't taste like what I thought it would taste like, right? That's not what I was expecting. And so you start to get feedback back. Now, I also like to take everything with, like you hold your hands with your fingers open, you let some of it run through, because you're like, there's some really, I'm going to say there's some people out there who criticize everything. Not that I know any of them personally. Not,
I do.
I might not be. Yeah. Anyway, it might be someone who I'm talking to right now. I don't know, but they might, their first reaction is always something just, this isn't good enough. Right. And that's okay. But you can sit back and say, does that really feel right for me? Because just because their view of it, especially if they're not your core client, right? If they're not your core client, then maybe you shouldn't be listening to them. And if they say something and it's still after a couple of days, as you've been marinating in the idea, maybe they're right. Maybe you should start asking some more of your core clients. Yeah. Right. And so this is where we sort of collectively get the collective juices flowing. Right. And so, this is our marination. Boy, we're really taking it all the way here. But, our analogy here. But, this is the thing. We want to make sure that we don't make brash decisions.
Right.
Right. We don't want to make brash decisions just because one person said they didn't like it. We want to also not make sure that we just don't get caught up in our own thing. You and I have been going through and looking at doing some work together on website copy. And you sent me some stuff today. And as I was looking through it, the thing that meant the most to me is that we get so caught up in our own language for things that we really forget that we have to be reflecting the language that other people are using, that the standard community is using. People who aren't yet indoctrinated in our systems and our processes and our companies. I work with podcasters all the time, but most aspiring podcasters have never heard the term pod fading before.
Right.
I use it all the time when I talk to existing podcasters because they get it. They know it. But if I use that term, like, hey, we want to help you avoid pod fading. They're like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't even know what that means. And so you want to make it sure that your show is going to be effective and you're going to keep going on your show. Like, you're not going to quit your show, right? Like, that's the language that they use.
Yeah, but here's the thing I come across a lot is people who, and I'm going to call you cute. I don't know that whole cute thing going on the internet, but people who make up their own name for things, like they try the Bennifer thing for their own, like what they do.
Right.
And then they'll write, like, they're first time copywriters, and they'll write something that they think is so darn cute and nobody else gets it.
Right.
That's when you need to start. And don't just ask your friends, because seriously, if you have friends that are yes people, which believe me, I have no friends that are yes people. Sometimes I just wish y'all would tell me yes and go on, but you don't. And that's good. But really, like, get solid feedback from people who would be your clients, because you want to replicate. And if they don't understand what you're doing and they don't trust what you're doing because you just made up Bennifer, you've got a problem.
Boy, Bennifer is really old, I think.
Isn't that
that's like a wife and two kids ago or something, and a nanny incident. So like, really old. But anyway.
Wait, was that the real Bennifer, or was it back Jennifer Lopez? And
yeah, I think it was Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's really old.
Like many bad movies ago too.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, but you're right. Absolutely. Like, we are branding people sometimes get us into this idea we've got to have something unique because it's got to be a URL, and it's, and it's okay. Like, you can have a URL pretty much anything. Like, I have a guy who's done thousands of revenue generating websites, and he tells me it does not matter what the name of the URL is. At the end of the day, I can send traffic from any ad, from any place to anything, and no one will ever look at the URL. And to be honest with you, they never really type it in until after they get to know you anyway. Mm-hmm. And the only thing they're grateful for is if it's not really hard to spell or really long. Like that's all that they really care about at the end of the day. They'll type in at that point anything when they know you and trust you.
Mhm.
So, looking at that, we get caught up in that this is the way our branding should be, but it's not in the beginning. And that's where so many of you are starting out in your marketing. You're starting out in the beginning. And now many of you, like I get people all the time who've been marketing really well offline, but you're starting to enter the digital world and it's different here.
Oh,
There's a lot of noise here, right? And so being cute, being special, branding this thing, it's actually really costly.
yes.
And that's the part that most people don't realize. They think, well, wouldn't it be great if I just branded the name Amazon, right? Like Amazon did. Like that was the stupidest name for a bookstore ever.
Right.
It was just ridiculous for a bookstore that really didn't have, an Amazon forest worth of books, right? Or Amazon jungle worth of books. They didn't at the time.
It does now. Like
It
there are
does now,
forests dying because there's so many books.
but he had a vision for what it wanted to be, and he was willing to plot away. Jeff Bezos was willing to spend the money, do what he had to do, make sure that it got out there, and he had a plan for that. But look how long it took.
Right.
So I tell people all the time, I bought my first book on Amazon in 1998. That was pretty much the year after they started. And I pretty much bought it like January of 1998. So it's like a few months after they launched, right? And so I'm an early adopter. And if I look at my sales, the purchases I buy year over year over year over year, they've kept going up steadily. But it didn't have anything to do with the fact that I thought their name was smart. I thought it was kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So at the end of the day, the names, the cute names, all that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is that you have what I want,
Right.
that you're speaking my language, that I understand what you're going to give me.
Yep.
So that's important first.
And it's also important what you talked about, those early adopters, because you have to get people, those early adopters, excited so that they tell others. That's what's really important, is connecting with those people right away and getting them super excited, and feedback to
Right.
make it better and more mainstream.
Right. And this is another thing that I think we forget so often in our marketing, is that we can have multiple personas online. It's not hard. We're not printing letterhead. We're not printing like major amounts of flyers and all those things. I mean, I have 6 different formats for my sales sheets. Right? One's targeted to those who know nothing about podcasting. One's targeted to those who know podcasting. One's for speakers. One's for authors. One for influencers or celebrities, because my language has to be different.
Yes.
I can do that because it's all digital.
Right.
But I didn't start with 7 of them to begin with. I started with the one that was going to make me the most money the fastest, the one niche area that I knew I could make traction in faster. So I started there. And then as I got more clients in the other areas, I added them later.
Mm-hmm. So I want to bring up that niche, because you and I are part of the Dames, which I got to spend some time with Megan Conter today interviewing.
Yay.
For those of you guys who don't know, the Dames is a networking group for 6 and 7 figure women. But what is cool about that was last week, we got to hear I think it's like the $1 Million Power Hour, we got to hear a group of CPAs that was so niched that they've got the corner on the market for pastors.
I know. I thought that was fascinating. Like here you're making 7 figures off of a tiny little niche of the market that it sounds like niche to us, but it's not. It's actually a really big niche when you look at it nationwide, right?
So that I just want to bring that up, because that niche, when you were talking about those 7 different audiences, those are actually different niches, but you started with the one that was going to make you the most money, the one you could easiest monetize, and then moved on from there to the different niches. And where that comes in with the marinating is just what you talked about. Each one of those is a niche that has its own unique language. You
Right. Its
don't.
own relationships and its own trust factors. Like thinking about that when you're marketing to pastors, right? You have to have a high trust factor. There's got to be this understanding of the faith based organizations, the fact that they don't have giant budgets, but they are accountable to their congregations. Like understanding those detailed things that makes you the reasons why you might have fired a few CPAs over the years or you've burned through some, right? That's important.
Uh-huh.
And we this is where you can get really great and deep and marinated in your languaging that you put into that marketing when you understand that super well. What happens when we water that down on our websites, when we put it so general and for everyone, we lose that. And remember, there's no reason you can't have, just like I have 7 different sales sheets, 7 different landing pages that go into the communities, because your ads should be different, your marketing should be different, your message, every single thing that your outreach should be different. They can go back in and then go to your service pages, which all look the same because, technically you're providing the same service as bookkeeping, like the the
Mhm.
the, the details are the same, but the languaging that draws them in the front end could be different. And it sounds really complex, but it's so not. It's actually super simple.
And it takes a little bit of that FOMO out because everybody I talk to, well, what about this group and what about that group? Like there's so much fear that you're going to miss out on one or two different niches out there when the truth is you really have to solidify that primary market first and then move to the two or three people here or there, because chances are you're not going to have a huge you'll have a huge primary market, but your secondary and tertiary markets, if you choose to have them, probably aren't going to be as large and probably aren't going to speak the same language.
Right. And then we don't go deep enough. A lot of times we don't go deep enough into the niche that we're doing. We just cursory touch on it and then we're like, oh, but I could take this client and that client and we spread ourselves thin overall instead of really working hard to market to the one group that we can speak to the most. And we learned this really fast in podcasting, especially in our 3D print marketplace when we were doing that. We learned really quickly that being deep in 3D printing meant that we just had this specialty, and it didn't matter whether they wanted design services from us, marketing services from us. They wanted our advice on everything because our niche was we got 3D printing. We understand the tech mindset. We spoke the language of the people. In fact, we simplified the language of the people. So it wasn't too techy for them. So it didn't make them feel stupid, even though some of the vendors were out there making them feel kind of like they didn't know enough, right? So we were the translators in there. And that's how we made our affiliates, we made our recommendations, our referral partners, we made them really successful because we played that role for them because our niche was very specific. And so what we found is that over time, the shows that grow the fastest, the ones that move into monetization quicker are the ones that stay tight, narrow, but deep in their knowledge base and what they cover and what they do. But it's a really, at the top, it's a really narrow niche. And so there's a lot of advice out there to do it the other way, like go really broad and just do this. But in my experience, in almost every market that I've ever worked in, when you do a shotgun approach, it takes you longer to get to monetization, and you
Mhm.
have to spend a lot more money in marketing. Those
I,
are the only two ways to make it work.
I agree. We had the publishing company for years really struggled. And when we added the assessment piece to it, and we were the only people out there doing it and doing that holistic business book, feedback to your audience, it made all the difference. Because not only was it a niche now, it was a niche inside of publishing, which is huge. Everybody and their mother's a publisher, but it added a layer where we truly were the only people in the publishing industry with that particular niche. So
Right.
that's why it is so important to do something like that, because now we don't advertise to everybody. We're mostly on referral because we've worked with those people who needed that other piece that nobody else has. And it's the same with you in the podcasting world. There are
Right.
a ton.
Yeah, well, there's a ton. Like I just had a big meeting with a company who had been researching like everybody else out there. And they kept saying, "Wow, you do all that. You're so deep in what you do." And I said, "Look, we didn't do it from the get-go. We didn't step out there and say, we're going to have all these services. We started out with the services, we refined it, we got it really great. And then our clients said, "We'd like more because you're doing a really great job. We like more from you. We don't want to have to go find somebody else to do this or do that for us." We would add more and we would add more. And coming up in the next year, we're adding more, right? Like that's how we kept doing it, as we kept saying, we're going to be obsessively podcaster centric.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, we know we're going to provide whatever the deep services that are needed in there. But it is that narrow niche of being podcaster centric that works for us. Do we do
Mm-hmm.
video casters? Absolutely. But our focus is on that audio podcaster piece because we know we can take them through. Do we do websites? Absolutely. Like all of those things get touched on, but they are not our focus of where we start from, because if there's no content to put in any of those other things, what's the point? So that's how we learned to do it. It's how I've been doing it for 27 years, and everything that we've ever done is being very deeply niche focused in understanding that community that you want to build with. So thinking about back to our example of the CPAs working for the pastors, like you can clearly see that what would happen is that those pastors would then say, "Hey, we want to start a nonprofit spinoff in one of our communities. Do you know a good attorney who could, or a company who could, you know, make us a new corporation that's a social good corporation or something like that?" So you could see where you're now starting to say, "Ooh, I could add those an affiliate or referral program or something to be adding these services," because more than one pastor starts asking me for these things because they trust me. They're going to ask me for recommendations. And
Exactly.
that's when you know what you should add to your mix. People jump too often to, let's move on to adding more products. Like let's add more stuff. We'll just sell more stuff. And I'm always really careful of like, let's just make sure our marketing and messaging and all of that
Right.
is resonating. And if we have the ear of that community, they're going to tell us what they want next.
Yes. You know, it's when I want to say about 2014, we actually had a website where you could a la carte add, like to build your own publishing package. People were so confused. Like they didn't know what to add. We weren't getting much in sales. And now we have 3 products. Like take it or leave it. If it's not for you, have fun at another company. But it has streamlined what we do tremendously. We offer 3 products. We do those 3 products super well. And
Yes.
that's how you marinate people in what you're doing is, you're not the jack of all trades, which so many companies are trying to be.
Yeah, they really are. And you know what? That's hard. You've got to have a lot deeper pockets to make that work for you. And we see it so often go wrong, and you don't get to the stage where you want. We were talking about the dames before and the 6 and 7 figure women. What I love is that their Denver chapter has like 30 or 35% of the women are 7-figure women.
Yeah.
And they got that because they were very focused. They were asking for that. They were looking for those women to join their group, right? So
Mm.
they were looking for that. How do we move from 6 to 7 figures? So we aren't getting women who just barely made 100,000. They're getting women who like are almost to that point of breaking 1 million, right? And that's their community. That's their deep niche that they're working on. And I think they've done a brilliant job of providing the right services for it too, which is really the right types of topics. As you pointed out, you did one of the $1 million power hours, which when you attend those, what you get is this sort of really interesting Q&A about how did you make that? How did you make that leap? How did you change that? What did you do? So you
Right.
can learn from that and apply that to your own business. And then they also have lots of trainings, which you can watch on recording. So
Yeah.
if you missed one, you can go back and listen to it. So
No,
especially if it happens to be in your product category or in your service category.
not only that, the way that they curate the members. So today when I was talking to Megan, they're opening up a branch. They're now international in Australia. She asks, do I have clients in Australia, which I do in Australia and New Zealand. They're men though. So would I ask the men if there are women in their lives? That's cool. They're always like, I would have never thought about asking men about, do you have women in your life that are 6 and 7 figures? Probably most of the men would go, I'd be married to them if I would. No, I'm just kidding. If I knew women like that, I would have married them by now.
Well, I'm making a note right now because I do have one over there who is a woman. So like Australian.
Very good. So
James chapter, making a note to myself so that I make sure to do that. So, this is where we really start to look at it is when your model is working, you can go expand to a new location, right? Expand because the model itself, the languaging will work no matter where you are. Now, when she goes over to Australia, maybe she'll have to change some of her languaging, but she's going to learn really quickly because she already has a great starting point of what's been working here. Maybe there's some terminology difference, right? That, they don't call them, but yeah, I mean, I kind of, they $1 million, maybe that's not the term that they use, right?
Yeah.
So maybe her $1 million power hour isn't going to go over as well.
Or it might be at 5 a.m. and it's really like coffee fed $1 million power hour.
Well, yeah, but I just mean the title of it maybe isn't going to be a match over there. Maybe they want something else. And that's important to learn. Like you'll be able to expand that. But because you already know it's working over here, when you're not seeing that same traction over there, you go, something's going on. Do we need to ask about the name? Do we need to ask about the time of day, right? We now can narrow down our problems where so many people, they're like, let's throw it all out and start all over again.
Right. And that's really expensive. I think about every time. I'm not saying you shouldn't rebrand because as your company grows, you need to rebrand, but think about every time you've rebranded, how expensive that is. It's not a cheap endeavor. So,
and I'm a fan of what I call tiered marketing, right? So we start out with our hypothesis marketing where we spend as little as possible just so we can start having a conversation, because if we don't have a conversation, then we don't get the perception back, that reflection back. Are we in the right place with our messaging and our marketing? So we want to get there in the cheapest way possible to have that conversation. Then we step that up and we spend a little bit more money refining that now that we have an understanding of what that market thinks of us, is looking for, is out there, and we refine it a little bit. And then you do some hard work in there. Get some processes in place, do some things in place. And then when you say, okay, in order for us to go up to the next level, because we're going to start taking advertisements, we're going to placing advertisements, we're going to start pushing our push marketing out there. Now we might need a little more streamlined brand. So we've just done that. We revise our website every 6 months. We do the same thing. Now, a lot of it is internal work, right? Because we happen to have a team who can do it. Like, we're luckier than most, but it's still expensive and time consuming, because you have to redo everything when you do that. So, but we do it because we know we're leveling up each time, but we're not revamping everything. We might change our colors. We might change our logo. We might change our titling, our messaging of things. We might be just positioning things differently, right? So each time we're taking off a chunk of it. We're not trying to undertake and do it all at once, because that's way too expensive. Yeah. Way too time consuming. And chances are you will go wrong somewhere, and then you won't know what part of it went wrong.
Yes. I'm laughing because Tracy's team does my site, and I do something different every month. I'm sure they get my email and they roll their eyes like, can't we get rid of her?
She's revising it again. No, but actually that's why we have our website maintenance program, is because we want you to do that. But we don't want you to redo your whole site. We want you to it's time, add a landing page. Go ahead this month. It's January. It's time to fix your bio. I just did a whole podcast coaching call on that a week ago.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. It's time to fix your bio for 2020. Let's have a different model. Let's not forget to fix it on our website, fix it everywhere, because things have changed. The marketing tone has changed, and I have more experience this year than I had last year, right? So let's fix it.
Yes.
And then for those of you who are my clients, and I really hope it's we don't have a great system for pulling off my coaching calls and turning them into podcasts, but I insisted someone figure out how to do it this time because it's such a good topic that we talked about and how to create a bio. We're talking about creating a bio with sort of a personality flair to it. So thinking about the idea of making it resonate with those that are detail oriented, those that are passionate, those that want the heart in your messaging.
Ooh.
Yeah. So rewriting your bio with those types of things in it. And I put it in a specific order because I found that it works. So if you put it in a specific order, like, so Juliet, I know you're kind of a detail oriented person. You want to get to the point, know what the important stuff is, right? That I might have got you right in a nutshell, right?
Maybe.
Right? Do
Yeah.
you want to listen to all the like, oh, Tracy has 3 girls and a dog, and like, do you want to listen to that before you get to the
No,
point
I
of
don't give a damn about your
right?
3 girls and your
That's
dog.
right.
No, I like your dog. No, I'm just kidding. I like your dog.
Right. Exactly though. That's the point. So you want to hit the hard stat thing first, the thing that has that. The second thing you want to hit is the prestige, because those that want like, oh, you worked with so-and-so clients, or, you know, like me, in columnist means something like that, that resonates with my audience. So you want to hit that as your second point. Your third point is something warm and fuzzy, but not like the personal side of it, just like sort of heart-centered kind of thing. Like you want to impact the world, not that general please, but whatever you've done that impacts the world in that kind of way.
Wait a
And
minute,
then
hold on. That's only for those of you who have a heart. If you don't
yeah,
listen to this.
if you don't have a heart, forget that. And then and then the fourth side of it is to touch on a little bit of going back to rounding that out and broadening the statistics to give that bigger vision of who you are, what you're doing. So kind of going in that way, because the visionaries will wait to the end. They want to hear the whole picture. They want to get the big picture. So they'll wait to the end to hear that last piece. But the relationship piece has to come before it, and the prestige has to come before that. And before that, you have to hit those details, those stats that make you the most valuable expert, right?
You're reminding me of is it called Courtney Knows? Crystal Knows. Crystal knows.
Krista knows. Yep.
Crystal Knows on LinkedIn. For those of you who haven't used it, it's a Google extension, and it will.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy, but it's cool at the same time. So it'll actually tell you how to speak to somebody that you've connected with on LinkedIn. And so it kind of reminds me of that. You're like doing it in their bio instead of on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is like that. It is hitting the personality points. And we do all our languaging that way because, well, we studied with Bill Sturley and we love his process of doing it. And we find it really works. It's our entire sales process is built around doing that and understanding those personality types. So why shouldn't our bios, why shouldn't our introductions be built that same way? Because we know it works.
Right.
And so this is where we get into that refining and marinating and building it up and really getting it to the stage at which it's amazing, right?
It is.
It's a fine wine at that point.
Wow. Are we going to go into a wine cave now?
I know, olives and wine, they sound like they go perfectly hand in hand. Yeah.
So you guys, next week, this was an awesome talk. Next week is resolution marketing. And we're actually going to be putting out invites all week and inviting you to jump on the call with us with your champagne in hand and tell us about what you want to do in 2020. What's your resolution? How are you going to get there? If you're shy, drink the whole bottle before you get here. So you'll just be like blabber, blabber, blabber. And, join us. We're going to talk about ours and we'd love to hear what yours are as well. The other thing is, don't forget, starting January 6th, we are going to be an hour earlier.
That's right.
Are you listening, Erin Young? We're going to be an hour
It's
earlier.
all because of you.
It's all because of you and Michelle. So, no, we're going to be an hour earlier. We invite you guys to hop in and find out what we're doing next year. And next year, Tracy and I are super busy traveling. I'm actually going to be traveling that particular day. We're going to have Marie M. Chef on to talk a little bit about her recipes, but we're going to have a few more guests here and there because I'm sure y'all are just sick of hearing us talk all
from just us. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to invite Karen Leland on to come talk about color and how color impacts, because we kind of talked a little briefly about that in a past episode, and we've got a few really interesting comments about that, but how if color can affect your sales, how it can affect your power of what you have, what you put out there, not just on your website, but on you, like you
Yes.
personally when you're out there.
And I would love to get Scott Carson on here before his big podcasting mass media event in January too. So now you're never going to hear from us again. We're just going to have a lot of guests. No, I'm just
No.
kidding.
We'll be touching base with you once or twice a month together for sure. And then there'll be one where it's each one of us maybe separate occasionally with a guest. So that's where, we'll make it happen. Hey, we just don't want to miss out because we're getting a lot of feedback from all of you that you like these. That you
Yeah.
like the topics. So
Yeah. During the holidays, it's been a little slow though.
yeah.
I think you like
That's
Santa Claus and partying more than us. No.
well,
So do
that's
I.
okay.
No.
I don't blame everybody. I actually rushed here from, the mall.
Did you? I'm done
Yeah.
shopping.
Well, I had to I'm afraid to say it too loud, but we had a Santa incident.
A what?
We had a Santa incident.
What does that mean?
One of my daughters decided to tell Santa about something that no one ever heard of before.
Oh, for Christmas.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we had So we
Well,
had
I
a
mean,
little Santa incident.
you probably were in good company though, because the 23rd is officially when men start to shop for
Yeah,
Christmas.
well, that's it. Tom was out. So I just was like, I'm gonna go with you and get my this one thing taken care of.
Sweet. So you guys, thank you. We will see you guys next week. Next week we'll be at 5 Pacific, 6:00, and then we'll switch to
Last one.
January. Bring your champagne. Tell us what your New Year's resolutions are, and we'd love to hear from you.
Take care, everyone.